Alrighty, welcome back to another Codex reading. We're going to start with the Elven People. Archive Spirit. They're archive spirits, or at least, that's what we call them. But they're not spirits. Well, not really. Spirits can think. They can act on their own, but these ones don't do that. They have no free will, at least to start with. If you have a lot of magic, though, and I mean a lot of magic, you can kind of force them into shape. Give them a mind or something close. Do that, and they can remember pretty much anything you tell them, for as long as you need. Only supposed to be 7, though. 1 for each elven god, and they're all destroyed. So where did this one come from? Who did it belong to? From Bioware Journal. The Elven Armory. We found another one of those strange elven buildings, the ones with the ring spinning around them. This one was unique, though, because it wasn't half melted. Not sure what kind of magic you'd need to melt stone like that. Not sure that's a question I ever actually want to know the answer to. I don't know why this one survived mostly intact when the others suffered so much damage, but the illuvion inside was smashed. Maybe that was it. All that empty armor was pretty spooky, too. Kept expecting it to jump off the wall at me. From Bioware Journal. Letter from Irulan to Balara. Balara, it was good to see you. Felt a little bit like old times, you know? Just going out there and doing the work instead of worrying about everything else that's happening right now. I know things are a little weird, and I know that some of this isn't really my business to say, even when we were together, but I'm gonna say it. You have to stop beating yourself up over what happened with Syrian. I know you think you're the person who can fix anything, but you can't. No one can. You're a friend, Balara, and I still care about you, so give yourself a break. Irulan. A meditation on grief. They say grief is a knife. Sharp, painful, immediate. But grief isn't a knife. It's a stone, choked down and kept down. It erodes. Time makes it smaller, lesser. You forget about it. It passes into memory. Where you used to feel its pain, now you feel nothing. But sometimes it turns, a note, a flower, a smell. The smoothly worn edges retreat, twist away. What comes now is as sharp and jagged as ever. It cuts anew, it's worn anew. Then it all happens again, and unlike a stone, there's always another jagged edge. Damn. From Irulan's journal, the forest is wrong. The forest is wrong, but more than that, the animals are wrong. The Hollow are spooked and seem to be off hiding somewhere. A lot fewer come around now. For some reason, the owls are gathering together, which they never do. They're usually loners. Even the insects are quiet. I'm glad the mosquitoes have skipped out, but it doesn't feel right. They're always a pain. Then our scouts started reporting strange creatures in the woods, things we've never seen in this region. We don't know what they are. They aren't natural, which means the animals that are natural are in danger. The whole fabric of life in the forest is under siege. We need to find a way to fight back. From Strife's journal, Ruins Reach. Veil Jumper recruits always ask me the same question. What is Ruins Reach? I tell them it depends on the day of the week. It's always changing. One week, the trees turn blue. The next, you'll hear voices speaking to you from thin air. The truth is, we don't know what it is. We only know that a stretch of forest where you could have a pleasant picnic is now an ever-shifting hall of mirrors and chaos. It's like reality is trying to figure out what it wants to be, what shape it wants to take, and it keeps changing its mind. I've explored our Lathan forest for much of my life, and I've never felt so confused. The forest I once knew is becoming something else. Balara's notes on the lighthouse. I can't believe we're in the Dreadwolf's old home? Base? I don't know the specific word exactly. We're calling it the lighthouse. There's a lot of history here. It looks like a part of a temple. Did he pull it all into the Fade? That would take an incredible amount of magic. There are a lot of personal touches too. I was expecting more gold, a throne maybe, but Harding tells me that was never the Dreadwolf's style. Harding also calls him Solus. Everyone does, but I don't know if I can learn to call him that. Fen'Harel maybe. I can get there. Book Club Notes. Notes for our first book club meeting. Attending Emmerich, Balara, Harding, Nev. Book The Hallowed Halls by Marcellus Ingenvig. Ingenvinus, chosen by Balara. Notes taken by Balara. I fucking love that there is a book club in my with my friend group here. Notes. Emmerich, frustrated that book was not accurate about how undead actually work, agreed that the romance subplot had the pleasing air of a classic tragedy. Neb, pretty sure the book was based on one of her old cases, refused to elaborate further on romance subplot. Harding felt it was too long and lacked excitement, kept scowling and asking, "Where's the blood?" Balara, me, enjoyed that enemies to lovers feature heavily in story, found undead a little creepy. We rolled dice to decide, and Harding is the next person to choose a book. Nice. Scouting report. The trees are singing. Expedition scouting report. Veil jumpers Renan and Nasir reporting. The trees and ruins reach started humming today. We heard faint echoes and went looking. We could never pinpoint it, but it sounded like music. It took us a while to realize it was coming from all directions, so we spent an hour going in circles, trying to make sense of that. Finally, it dawned on us it was coming from the trees. We were completely surrounded by the hum. Inside it, the whole forest was bathed in it. We couldn't tell if it was the leaves or the branches making the sound. We bought back samples of both, but as soon as we left Ruins Reach, the hum stopped. We haven't heard it since. Scouting report. Apparition. Expedition scouting report. Veil jumper Kada reporting. I was in the northernmost stretch of our Lathan forest trying to find a way into the Genelis run. We recently discovered an old journal that claimed a lost Hala keeper found a room full of relics inside Genelis, down in the labyrinth. The entrance was blocked by rubble. As I was getting ready to wedge myself through a gap, an apparition appeared in front of me. It seemed to be blocking my way. Whatever it wasn't solid, so I think I could have passed through it, but it seemed to be waving its arms. It felt like a warning that I shouldn't enter the ruins. I didn't argue, and I turned and ran. Alright. From Ireland's journal. Who's this Morrigan? Strife brought in a mage named Morrigan. They have some kind of history. I don't care much for her. This is our forest. We've been defending it, and now she wanders in like she rules our Lathan? Farther down the page. After I wrote that, I asked around about her. Morgan may be uppity, but I guess anyone with her family would be. They say her mother was Flemeth, a legendary witch of the wilds that we still tell tales about. She has a bunch of witch daughters all over the place. Some say Flemeth was immortal, so I don't know what that makes Morgan. Scary, I guess? They say Morgan's an incredibly dangerous mage, that she's into blood magic, she's a shapeshifter, she can turn into a dragon, she was an advisor to the Inquisition, and she's had more lovers than trees in the forest. Amazing. She wanders the world, being mysterious, popping up whenever it suits her fancy. I don't know what's true or not, but I'm watching my back around her. Interesting. A lament for fallen Elvanon, from Veil-Jumper's letter. I hear tall watchtowers once stood where these waters emptied into the sky, their torches lit to guide the weary traveler. Sometimes, on still days, when the mist hangs low on the river, I can imagine the lighted path up to the golden spires of our Lathan, and the voices of my people calling me home. I know Elvanon, our lost civilization, is not how I imagine it. Our Lathan was a place of wonder and magic, and also of conflict and war ruled by tyrants. Yet still I mourn it, and wish that I could have seen it just once, and called it mine. Added below in different handwriting. These feelings are not yours alone. There is no sin in grieving what was lost, imperfect though it was. Strife. Alright, food inventory. On a page torn from a notebook, in Balara's handwriting. Things we have. From Solus, lots of salted meat, not sure what kind, not challah, large quantity of raisins, seemingly untouched, several jars of honey. From us, fresh meat, all, several varieties of cheese, Nev, flour, me, salt, me, fresh rolled noodles, Harding, some kind of paste made out of peppers and oil, Harding, cask of fresh wine, all, large tub of coffee beans, all, small jars of very expensive coffee beans, Lucanus, breaded sticks of cheese, Tosh, animal biscuits, Stavrin, fresh bananas, Emmerich, fresh bread, me, fresh tub of butter, me, things we need, fresh milk, any, apples, ask Emmerich, more cooking oil, chocolate, Rook, wine for book club. Awesome. Magic dampener notes. Initial notes on the dampener's operation. Dampener creates a counter-resonance to the Fade. That's why it's safe to live here. No one's been torn apart yet, that I know of. But the counter-resonance from the Dampener is tuned to this specific part of the Fade. The more you move away from this spot, the less effective it would be. There's a theory that every mage has a unique resonance. The way they touch magic is just a little bit different. Theoretically, could you tune the Dampener to a person's resonance instead? Make it so they couldn't use magic? Ooh. Would be hard to figure out someone's specific resonance. Would need examples of their magic. Need third volume of Harris's collected essays. We'll ask the professor if he has it. Balara. Theories on the Scarred Queen. Written in Balara's scrawling hand. Nev, first 3 issues are done, already have some theories. So the way the Scarred Queen talks, it's very formal, very fancy. No one else talks like that in the Scarred Queen. Except the Warden Commander, and so far they've never shared a single scene. Starting to think that they're the same person. Written in Nev's cramped hand. Nice theories, Belle, and more interesting than the Scarred Queen and the Warden Commander being sisters. If you want a theory back, some evidence points to the Scarred Queen being a manifestation of Balin's anger. When you read about her herring, the writer is very careful not to say how it ended. Not concretely, anyway. Why leave that out? Feels deliberate. Lost in time. I thought the rift had taken me to another part of the forest, but I was wrong. I am lost, not in space, but in time. Following the river to find my way, I came across the crooked willow several meters away from the bank. Did you know the river had moved? I will make my way to Demetta's crossing. Perhaps there's already a settlement there, and someone who can help. Marin, scribbled below in another's hand. The forest toys with us. I found this in a leather pouch buried beneath the willow, 2 days after Marin went missing. The pouch was a gift. It was new. Now the strings are crumbling. This is his writing, but on aged deerskin. Monasteral Lathalan. I hope you found your way, Yerlin. And finally, for the Elven people, notes on a mystery substance from a scroll found in the ruins, translated from Elven by Balara. I have begun my tests in earnest of the substance Atrahel brought back. To properly test its efficacy, I thought it prudent to see what effect it might have on another. Given his position, I of course chose Atrahel. He is unwitting, of course, as has always been the case with him. Impressively, despite its anti-magic properties, it seems to have filled Atrahel with renewed vim and vigor. However curious, I will continue to monitor him to record whether the change is permanent, but regardless, it is quite promising to see such profound results at such an early stage. In the same hands as the other sets of notes. Balara. Alright. So now we go down to the Grey Wardens. From Dabrin's journal, Gingerwort Truffles. I don't know why a half-eagle, half-lion likes truffles, but griffins can't resist them. Hassan's brothers and sisters all went wild for them, and now Hassan is carrying on the family tradition. I asked Harding what's so special about them. She didn't know. So we did what any good mage or alchemist does. We both tried a nibble. The taste of ginger was overwhelming. It's too much, yet Hassan gulps them down. I guess it's like broccoli. Some people love it, but those with working taste buds avoid it. Emmerich muttered something about brewing it as a tea to enhance any magical properties, but I'm not in a hurry. As long as this ginger wort keeps Hassan happy, I won't question the reasons why. From Dabrin's journal, The Nature of Griffins. Talking to Rook about Hassan's instincts got me thinking. Can you change something you're born with, or are we blank slates who can make our own way? Was I born a monster hunter destined to do this job, or did I have a choice? With Hassan, he's this incredible ball of fur, feathers, and energy. Watching him learn to fly, or swim for the first time, or taste an apple. There's so much potential in him. You can see he's having fun, testing his limits and learning about the world. Has anyone ever raised a griffin that wasn't trained to fight for the wardens? I've seen them get into a frenzy around Darkspawn, so there's no doubt it's like a cat going after a mouse. It's ingrained. But can griffins do anything else? Would they want to? I wonder. From Dabrin's journal, My Younger Days. Hunting for truffles turned out to be a better chance to get to know Rook better. It also got me thinking about my younger days, and how I haven't spoken to my clan in a long time. They didn't understand why I wanted something more than the traditional Dalish life. I guess I was stubborn and bullheaded and figured I'd go show them as I ventured off to find my fortune. Since then, I've kept my distance. That's on me. Maybe I've been feeling guilty. I don't know. But I do know I miss Uncle Eldrin. Talking about him with Rook got me thinking about my days as a kid in our Latham forest. Racing Aravels through the forest, following hidden Dalish trails to secret waterfalls. It all gave me a taste for adventure I never outgrew. From Davern's Journal, Wysapt. Joining up with Rook means I won't be going back to Wysapt anytime soon. I doubt I'd be welcomed, not if the first warden caught wind of what I'm doing. I'll miss the old fortress. It's cold, damp, and drafty as a canyon, and so vast it takes months to get your bearings. But it's home to Grey Wardens, and it's the only home I've got. Wandering the massive libraries of books I'll never read, getting bruised and battered while sparring in the training yard, smelling the latrines in the summer, freezing in our bunks in the winter, it's all pretty miserable, yet just as exhilarating. Wysapt is over 1,000 years old, its armies have fought and won blights, and its banners have never fallen. It's the beacon in the darkness that keeps evil at bay. Thedas would just be a world of ruins without its protection. From Davern's Journal, Griffin Training. My first week at the Eyrie, and I keep thinking that I'm sure glad Lancet and Remy are in charge of the training. These griffins are a handful. A rolling, flying, screeching, always hungry ball of feathers and chaos that never stops squawking and pooping. That last one is no small thing. 13 griffins all pooping here makes an incredible mess. Lancet just shrugs and says, Wysapt could use the fertilizer. Sure, as long as I'm not the one hauling it away, I'm here to guard these animals. I've tagged along on a few hunting runs against lone darkspawn in case things get out of hand, and I admire Lancet and Remy's patience. It's going to be a while before these griffins are the warriors of old we've read so much about. From Davern's Journal, Griffin Extinction. I've been going through the Grey Warden histories of the Griffins. Something isn't adding up. They're part of our order for centuries, and then one day they aren't. There's vague talk about blights taking their toll, how eggs weren't hatching and their numbers dwindled, but they'd already survived earlier blights without trouble, and why would eggs stop hatching? Which means something happened, but I can't find any details. Did they get sick? Was there some sort of disease? More than a few records around that time are missing, and I can't find anything about how many eggs hatched, which I'm sure they were meticulous about. There's a missing piece in all this I need to track down. From Davern's Journal, Griffins are real. Like every Grey Warden, I've heard about griffins, the tall tales, the stories of legend, the role these animals once played in our history, and like every Grey Warden, I've wondered what they were really like. We've got statues of them all around Wysapt, but that's not the same thing. Today, I actually met one. The first warden said I was being assigned to a secret project out in the Anderfels. I'd never have imagined it would mean I'd meet real-life griffins. Lancet and Remy have gotten used to them, but the shock still hasn't worn off for me. 13 of them. 13 secret miracles we need to protect at all costs. I still don't understand how they came to be, but somehow I'm part of it all now. From Davern's Journal, The Gloom Howler, Part 1. It's my first week posted at the Griffin Eyrie. Whatever stalking Grey Wardens isn't human, or a dwarf, or an elf, or anything I've heard of before. Whatever this monster is, it's smart enough to target Wardens. It's already killed members of our order, and now our commanders are worried it's going to strike the Eyrie. We have to stop this thing before it does more damage. I've been told if the area is attacked, protecting the griffins is my first priority. We can't lose these animals again. If we can draw the Gloomhauler out, even if we don't kill it, I'm hoping we'll have a trail to follow. Shark's Mouth Fort 1. The Grey Warden. Excerpt from a Grey Warden log. After agreeing that the Darkspawn are a threat, the Kunari sent their first warden recruit. He had trouble living under the restrictions of his homeland from what little we gather. He should fit right in with the rest of the wardens. I don't know that he cares about warden ideals, but he's a great fighter. He passed the joining and even helped kill an ogre coming up through the volcano. The only thing left is to give him a name. The Kunari are normally just named after their jobs, he says, so we're calling him Grey for now. Added by Davern. Always wondered when the Kunari first joined the Wardens. Good to see even the Kunari took the blight seriously. Shark's Mouth Fort 2. The Eruption. Excerpt from a Grey Warden log. A seer warned us of a darkspawn horde gathering in the tunnels in Shark's Mouth. The fighting was fierce, more darkspawn than we'd seen in years. They would have overwhelmed us, but the seer called on spirits to awaken the volcano. Warden Grey was more scared of the seer than he was of the Hurlocks. Kunari have a particular fear of mages and demons, but Grey still protected the seer until her ritual was complete. I'm watching lava pour from the jaws of Shark's mouth as I write this. It'll be years before the Darkspawn find another way to the surface. The seer said the eruption would anger some spirits, but we'll deal with that as we must. Added by Tosh. Seers awakening a volcano? A Kunari believer protecting a mage? Would have lost money twice. Every warden's journey. There's the joining and the calling, the beginning and the end. Every Grey Warden gets the first. They drink the potion of archdemon blood, laced with more magic than they know. If they survive, they'll sense the Darkspawn, hear the Blight's song. The Blight itself won't hurt so much, they'll be forever changed. I was forever changed. Not everyone survives the joining, they end at the beginning. Others end in battle, they're killed by Darkspawn, or maybe some other monster kills them. We go to sunless and forsaken places. We fight what would devour Thedas, and we don't always return. I've survived all those battles myself. It makes me no better than anyone else. Finally, there's the calling, and that is the end, no matter how far you've come. After the joining, the Blight won't hurt so much, but it's still inside you, and in the end, it still wins out. The Blight's song, the one you can only hear because you're a warden, starts to change. It starts to call you. At first you can ignore it, and then one day you can't, because you're changing. At first you can't see it, but then you can, in the veins in your arms, the circles under your eyes. So you leave. You find the biggest batch of Darkspawn you can, you take down as many as you can before the Blight takes you. You leave the world a little safer. The other wardens will tell you that you'll know when the time comes, that you'll be certain when it's real, but they haven't heard the calling yet, and you wonder if it's really true, if you'll really know. You will. I do. I've got my spot in the deep roads picked out. Take care of yourself. A page torn from Warden Aaron's journal, left for Warden Theo. That it? Alright, Grey Wardens are done. The Morn Watch. A distressing sight. How I regret visiting Amaranthine today. I'd set out to explore Chantry described in one of Brother Badine's travelogues. Harding came along, but somehow had her fill only after a few minutes. While inspecting some exquisite mosaics, I spotted a funeral procession through a window. I watched, frozen fast, as the mourners fed a shroud into a bonfire. Harding didn't understand why I looked green. Don't those outside Navarra ever find it heartbreaking dwelling on the departed without the comfort of a body? Even their ashes are scattered to the wind. From Emmerich's diary. A monthly stipend. I don't understand why Lucanus claims it's bizarre for Manfred to receive a modest monthly stipend. Manfred may need the funds one day, and he's capable of making small purchases with supervision. I admit, however, he fancies the strangest things, some frequent acquisitions. Excuse me. A silver-backed and Theban hand mirror. 20 blue marbles. 4 sticks of chalk. He presented one to Harding. A jeweled brooch shaped like a lizard. I had to make up the difference. He must learn to tell copper from gold. A brass cup. A rather fine quill knife. Confiscated. 2 pounds of almonds removed to the kitchen. Yet more string. The latest item cost nothing. Manfred's become very fond of a little wooden stick he enjoys pointing about. From Emmerich's diary. Emmerich, note to Harding on souls. Note left on a thick book. It wasn't a silly question at all. There's an enormous difference between a spirit and a soul, but the metaphysics are rarely taught outside made circles. A soul is the richly numinous force within every living being. You and I, our companions, our opponents, all possess a soul. When we slumber, it slips into the fade, our most intimate connection with the land of dreams. A spirit is an entity formed entirely in the fade from raw magic. While both dwell in intangible regions, a trained mage will never mistake one for the other. I found Craverton's Dialogue of the Outer Reaches to be the best starting book on the subject. If you'd like to peruse his absolutely gripping theories on autogenous liminality. Misconceptions about the necropolis. No one has more respect for Brother Genetivi's scholarship than I, but his writing on Navarra details very little of the practice of the Grand Necropolis. The more I travel, the more I'm convinced these Elysians have led to unfortunate conclusions by people of less than generous imagination. For example, we do not lock up our dead to pound fruitlessly against their coffins in the dark. Our departed lie in peaceful state, or even wander the undead tableau, or our loving constructions, not dress up with corpses. And in the event a malign spirit causes a disturbance, we don't simply throw them in a tomb and toss the key. Sometimes I think Warden Davern crafts these questions to tease me. From Emmerich's diary. Complications in the Veil. The Veil, our immutable, eternal barrier against the Fade. Or so we thought. There has recently been a great weakening in the Veil. Thanks to a confluence of magic in the south we've yet to understand. What scant information we have paints a chilling picture. The Veil may be undone, permanently, either in large parts or as a whole. We cannot give way to panic. Should this threat be real, someone must be prepared to answer. If the veil falls, thousands of lives, all we hold dear, will be swept away. I cannot say that what would take their place. Notes from a lecture by Emmerich Volcaran in 942, Dragon, to a council of Chauncey scholars, nobility, and Navarran mages. That's interesting. Templars in Navarra. To Winter commentary about Templars in other nations, there's a note from Emmerich at the bottom. Navarra is not unlike the Imperium when it comes to Templars. Navarran Templars still put down anyone foolish enough to be possessed by a demon. This is sensible. It is the best use of an attack dog if you are obliged to set one at the gates. Their political power, however, is thin. They're not beholden to the necromancers, but the necromancers don't always yield. It is how they banned the Templars from their crypts. How cynical! These unvarnished opinions of our kingdom. Navarra's Templars are hardly banned from the Grand Necropolis. There's simply a tacit agreement that any trouble arising there is best left to necromancers with a certain amount of experience. An overview of spirits malign. Malign spirits are inevitable. We understand what manifests them directly in our world. Jealousy, arrogance, greed, rage, and fear, bolstered very often by bloodshed. Corruption of the undead is more insidious. It takes a significant disruption in the Fade, a more powerful spirit, or other mystical conditions to transform a normally serene denizen of the necropolis into one of the malicious dead. Luckily, after banishing such spirits, we may recover the corpse and once again infuse it with a benign possessor. In circumstances where mortal suasion is behind a peaceful spirit's downfall, the penalty is clear. The lives and bodies of those who tamper with the undead of the necropolis are forfeit unto the Mornwatch. Notes by Watcher Myrna. Now we're done with the Mornwatch. Why are we not done here? Did I miss one? Nope. Okay. Who knows? The Dwarven People. Thoughts on Isatunol. Harding. How can anything be both an... I already read this one. Sorry. A letter home. An unsent letter from Harding to her mother. My dear Sma, I'm writing to you from Minrath... I don't know what I'm doing. Minrathis. Into Vinter. I'm into Vinter. Isn't that amazing? Yes, there are power-hungry mages and slavers and cultists, but the city is so much more than that. You should see the magical lights. I mentioned this before, but I don't really work for the Inquisition the way I used to. It's complicated. I do miss it. I miss Skyhold and my friends there, but Charter still keeps in contact, and I'm working with Varric doing something really important. I wish I could tell you more. Soon, though. We're very close to finding the person we've been tracking. Once that's over, I'll come home and you'll get to hear the whole story. Maybe I'll even be in time for the sheep shearing. Lots of love, Lace. Harding's notes. Thoughts on Stone Sense. I can more reliably use my new abilities now, thanks to Rook's encouragement. Oddly enough, it's easier to handle certain kinds of rocks. Some just don't seem to respond to me. Is it a Titan thing? Maybe some stone was closer to or part of a Titan. Maybe I just need to get better? I don't know. It must be Stone Sense, just extra. I can now do the things that people with Stone Sense can do. If I concentrate hard, I can tell if there's a cavern close by, or water, or Illyrian vein. I can tell different types of rocks apart. They sound different, but I'm listening with something other than my ears. That makes no sense written down, but it feels true. Encouragement from Harding's ma. Dearest Lace, remember when Sir Russ bucked and threw you and you landed face first on that pitchfork? There were so many tears for those first weeks from not recognizing yourself in the mirror, but that was mostly the swelling, and in the end the scar didn't ruin anything. You learned to accept it as part of you. Of course the Titan's gift changes you. Every day adds something new. Sometimes it's a little, sometimes it's big. And so often it's painful, but it doesn't lessen us. Change is difficult, but all growth is, and a thing that stops growing, well, it's dead, isn't it? I do worry, of course, about what it all means, but I've always worried a little about your adventures. Whatever comes, I know you're strong enough to hear it. Love, Ma. Harding's notes. Kal Shirak? I have been thinking about Kal Shirak. Aside from Orzammar, it's the only other great Thaig we know about. It was supposedly destroyed in the First Blight. The Thaig was in the Darkspawn's path, and the dwarves sealed it off and retreated to Orzammar. They abandoned their own people, and then about 20 years ago we learned that the city survived and continues to hold a terrible and justified grudge against Orzammar. Kal Shirak has secrets, many, many secrets. How they survived the Blight is one, and I hope a greater understanding of the Titans is another. Charter knows people who can put me in touch. I hope they're okay talking to me. It doesn't matter if they don't know much more than I do. If they accept the Titans or are curious about them, it'll be a huge improvement over Orzammar. Harding's notes. Orzammar and Titans. Getting the strong feeling that Orzammar doesn't want to acknowledge the Titans' existence. You'd think the capital of Dwarven civilization would be interested in the history of our people, but nope. Almost 10 years since Shaper Volta connected with her Titan, and they don't care. I know they know. I delivered the Inquisition report to the Assembly myself. Technically, I delivered it to an Assembly aide because I'm a surfacer and I don't get to be anywhere near the Assembly Hall. Sure wasn't fun learning that. Records that exist outside of Orzammar mention great sleeping Titans and the first ancestors. Maybe Orzammar's leaders removed all references to the Titans from their memories on purpose. Maybe they buried our report on Volta for the same reason. Are they afraid of something? Maybe accepting that we all came from the Titans makes it harder for them to defend this caste system and their treatment of the caste list. Ugh. The Antivan Crows. The training of Jacobus and Prodigy. Please describe the Antom. Blade to the base of the horn of the blade to the base of the horn at the ear, or up from behind, between ribs on the left, / back of ankle to hobble to get targets in range. My family name is the last thing they hear. Please describe the Venatori. I don't care about the Venatori. Poison, I guess. Please describe the rest of the page is obscured by a series of angry scribbles and several horned heads with X's for eyes. Jacobus knowing a potential target requires more than merely know. Goddamn. Jacobus, knowing a potential target requires more than merely how you would kill them with blood in your own heart. That is not what contracts are. We will begin again when you have had time to grieve. I worry that Ayer's instruction is obscured by more scribbles. Regarding the above, no doubt you and Bioware have noticed that Jacobus has been gravely affected by losing his cousin. I would ask that in your roles as Talons, you consider how best to guide him and others who have felt similar losses. He shows immense promise, but left to fester in vengeance, he and others could soak the streets in even more needless bloodshed. That is not the goal of my teachings. Air. The mark and throwing the wings. This instruction will not take the place of practice. We do not hide, we move, and we need to show our path, and so we know where to go. And the people know where we've been, but do not have time for stencils or sigils. Hence the mark and learning to throw the wings. Vellum is scored, waxed, stitched into a sphere, and filled with colored liquid. The ball is weak at deliberate points, and if thrown properly, 3 turns for body length, 10 for a street, it splashes into silhouette and wings. Why so careful a throw when splatter alone would mark a path? Is there something we do that does not benefit from style? Instruction by air. Keep pressure up on the on-tom. I can keep us supplied and we need fishers on the water. You'll be throwing tomatoes if I run out of squid ink. Addendum by Fletcher. Weird. King's Draft. Action on behalf of Antiva. As 7th Talon, I give notice that the Antivan Crows have drawn a contract against the enemies of Treviso, the Antom. It is not the Antom. We aren't required to give His Majesty a point by point, but he is your blood, Viago. It is a courtesy to let him know we are going to war. The occupying Antom are strong, driven, fanatical. They cannot be reasoned with because reason is just a weapon to be resisted. They can be killed, of course, but removing a leader does not remove their desire to be led. They are a force we must contend with, but they are not Treviso's true enemy. A name, Viago. Contracts require a stabber and a stabbee. Taya, you know my doubts. The butcher took the city too easily, and there's dealing with the gods there that I dread to know. But I fear that the true enemy of Treviso is not known because they are known, merely unrevealed. The hand that leashed Treviso. Is that nebulous enough? Yes, that is a series of someones we can eventually kill, but not something we can send my father. On to draft 5 then, Neri. Begin again. Viago de Riva, Fitalan, Andaratia, Cantori, 7th Talon, transcribed, Neri de Acutus. Demonology, Caliban. You really must stop using the classical categorization for demons. I've told you 1,000 times. It's far too simple. Demons are beings of emotion. Emotion is complex. Pride is both self-esteem and mad hubris, darling. And those are the easy variations. A single word will not suffice. Our work will delve into the depths of the soul. We will bring to light the varieties of demon that our fullest contemporaries cannot even imagine. Did you see the fascinating work done by that southern cult? Fiery something or other, Fiery Promise? They attempted to seed demons into human flesh, to make them stable beyond the veil. Imagine what we could discover if we did the same. Zara. Exploring the ossuary, Lady Zara. The work is progressing slower than anticipated. Though the artificers were confident that they could make use of the Elven device maintaining the barrier, they were unable to extend its reach to more than a handful of yards in any direction. Most frustrating. I sacrificed the worthless fools. They gained us another 6 feet or so. What we have thus far excavated has proved most interesting. The structure appears to have served as a temple to the elven goddess Gillanane. I had thought the tales of her creating various woodland creatures was mere superstition, but the holding cells and cages with the remains of animals no one can identify suggest otherwise. You should visit. I think you will find the place intriguing. Your servant, Caliban. The Covenant we grant. Insight into how the gods manipulate enemies of the Antivan Crows, vellum with lettering seared into it without pressure as though the words merged from the skin. It is directed at the butcher. This boon is yours, bound by the blood of beasts, as our ancestors bound the blood of dragons to themselves. As they claimed the strength of fire, we have been granted the strength of form, of burning muscles and taut veins. Through this we become strong again. Through this we become more. Carry this strength and join us. Another script is inked below, scrawled by a strong hand. Why do you hesitate before greatness? You should have spread our boons among your soldiers. I offered you the blade to crush our enemies, but you clutch your pen like a scholar. Do you even fight alongside your brothers? Your way is old and weak. My Antom will bury yours. The Dragon King. A third script is hastily appended, presumably the butcher. I hate that oafish fool. Banner of House Gagar Mercantile. Fletcher's house banner has a field of uniform color, but it shimmers with threads from 100 different weavers. The sharpest edge is keened by roots well traveled and bonds maintained. Trade is our talent and coin is our blade. We are House Gagar and we are Antivan Crows. A letter from House de Riva. Lucanus, you're right. We knew they were coming, but the Antom invasion still caught us unprepared. Buying a Talon was a move that paid off for them. Emil Cortez was too skilled, and we were too busy picking up the pieces when the strike came. Worse, they hit without warning and had us in their grip fast, too fast. They bought someone else, maybe a lot of someone's. We hadn't yet found all the throats that need cutting. Now we have Kunari in control of all Antiva. Treviso's like their favorite toy. They flaunt the occupation here, showing off how they took charge of our poor, lawless people for their own good. I know you just got out, and too much has happened already, but we still have work to do. Biago. Katarina's search. A note attached to a stack of reports, maps, and other documents. Lucanus. I found these at the Diamond in Katarina's private room. They date back to the day your ship was lost. The day you were taken from us, and chased the smallest leads from Antiva to Deventer and back again. Whatever Varric and his friends did in their pursuit of Solus caused a ripple through the Ventori ranks. It made them slip, and allowed Katarina to discover what was hidden in our waters this whole time. She never stopped looking for you, Lucanus. I thought you'd want to know. Taya. The Vineyards. Della Morte Vineyards. Viago. Do you have a map of Antom's movements through Antiva, or records of their activity? From an offhand remark, I learned a vineyard south of Treviso was burnt to the ground, which was one owned by the Della Mortes. I visited a few times. I remember the sign at the front gate was with its brightly painted vines. Caterina was ensuring the families impacted were taken care of. I should ensure the same. Lucanus. Note attached to Viago's reply. V has attached everything you need to know and more. I've added a list of every contract closed with an Antom as the target. We have suffered, but the Antom have never been unchallenged. I have a bottle from the vineyard you mentioned. We'll drink it when Treviso is ours again, and it will be all the sweeter. Taya. Seeking Zara. Lucanus. Here's something I could find on Zara. At least when she's in Minrathis, as you know too well, she's frequently absent from the city, from the country itself half the time. Those trips are far longer than people think. Rumor has it she gets an imposter to sit in magisterium meetings for her. She wants the glamour of power without the boredom. She used to sponsor magical research in Minrathis, but that stopped abruptly, likely when she took her hobbies elsewhere. Nev. Attached to Nev's notes. Taya. Lucanus still has associates in Treviso. If these notes can help track them down, use them. Perhaps a frequent guest at her gatherings or money we can follow, since it left the Deventer Imperium. Zara is vain, egotistical, and cruel. Expect nothing less from those who sought her favor. On the invasion, Treviso has always been a free port. Even the merchant princes respect this. Their fortunes exist because we trade and work where we will. So of course the first act of the Antom invasion was to blockade our trading ships with their dreadnoughts. Then they somehow took our guard outposts in a single evening. After that, the Antom built fortified camps right outside Treviso, positioned as though they'd already figured out where to choke off resistance, or as though someone drew them a map. The Butcher seems capable. He has, irritatingly, a gift for anticipating acts of sabotage. But I want to know what traitor gave that monster our city before we see him dead. From Biago's diary. Lucanus' logbook 1. Dawn. Exercises, breakfast. Mid-morning, weapon maintenance, inventory. Midday, meeting with Nev and Harding, Solus, and Blighted Gods. Midday meal. Late afternoon. Exercises, meeting with Ballara, Lighthouse, and Alluvians. Evening. Supper preparations, correspondence with crows. Nearing midnight. Study. Every hour seems accounted for, but it is difficult to know for certain. There was no day or night in the ossuary. Now, at this lighthouse, the sky offers little hint to the true time in the world. Lucanus' logbook 2. Dawn. Exercises, breakfast. Mid-morning. Weapon maintenance. Meeting with Nev, Harding, and Ballara. Possible movement from gods. Midday. Midday meal. Search library. Late after, the handwriting abruptly alters. A piece cut from the all. Golden stranded weaves. Protection cage. Keep them out. Keep me in. Drawn below is a decagonal diagram of perfectly even intersecting geometric lines. Okay. Shadow Dragons. Informant notes. Past work with Alec. Nev. Who's your favorite purveyor of Dogtown gossip? Those hauled out books you're chasing? The one with the deadly charm inside? I know which ship brought them in, but you would have found that without me, so I'll do you one better. I know the names of everyone who sailed it, on the official list or not. Some interesting family ties to some fancy addresses, a far walk from our neighborhood. I think we can both agree that's good gossip. Better yet, it's on the house. You did me a favor over in Veldorma, and I'm doing you a favor now. Of course, we might call this great gossip, above and beyond, enough to make us even for that mix-up with the Starcave and Falcon statue? Alec. Nev's case notes. The Viper. More new faces in Docktown looking for work. Say the refugees from the front. But the scars tell a different story. The shutdown of the textile mill north of Asaro was all over the broadsheets. Story says sold to the new owners, but word on the street is that it's another successful slave rebellion. In just the past year, the South Nosen shipyard, the caravan moving slaves to Ventus, the mines in the 100 Pillars, perhaps more if they kept it quiet. If you know who to ask and you ask about the rebellions, you'll hear about the Viper. They say he arrives, helps the slaves, finds them new lives, then disappears. I like the sound of it. Slave rebellions used to get put down easy. Something's changed. Is it just this mysterious Viper, or is there something else going on here? Neb's case notes. Tarquin. Met the man shadowing me. Name's Tarquin. Got tired of his antics, hid and doubled back to approach him from behind. If he was surprised, he hid it well. Said he wanted to know if I could be trusted before he spoke to me. I pointed out that my trustworthiness aside, his methods gave me no reason to trust him. He conceded. He wanted to know if I had a lead on the red lyrium potions coming through the docks. He'd seen evidence of a cover-up in Templar reports and wanted to compare notes. Might be able to make real progress from this. Rana's heard of him, a soldier from Ventus who's quit the military and took a place with the Templars in Minrathis. Kept his head down, mostly deals with paperwork in the archives. Got the impression he isn't well liked by his superiors. Explains the side job. Lorelei, the Shadow Dragon Fence. I thought Lorelei might be from Ferelden from the way she called her assistant pup, and now she seems to be just a little bit more interested in news about the South than most people I've met up here. During the Fifth Blight, Tyrlone Gaines sold people from the Denerim alienage to Deventer slavers to fund his war. Lorelei was one of those people. She doesn't want to talk about what happened, but it sounds like she joined the Shadows after they helped free her, in a rebellion they supported. Lorelei wears a little wood carving of Denerim's Venadal, Tree of the People. It's the one thing she kept from there. The slavers took everything else. From Harding's notes on the Shadow Dragons. Damn. To Minter's shame. Like many of you, I defended slavery. It was just how things were, and part of a natural order. Some, those with magic, those who ruled, would always be given care of others. To mistreat the enslaved was a mocking of this sacred duty, grounds for the harshest of punishment. Cruel slave owners were the problem, not the institution of slavery. I was, quite simply, wrong. There is no defending the practice of owning another person. I am ashamed I ever did, and will eternally be grateful to those who helped me re-examine my beliefs. I hear you ask, when we tear down the structures that inform our culture, what is left? I challenge you, those of you who profess leadership, who would set yourselves above others, to see past what has been taught and to forge a path of your own. And if you need foundational principles, then I charge you to choose from these: respect, compassion, understanding, love. Magister Dorian Pavis, from a speech given to the Magisterium. The violet haze. A knock sounded behind him, loud, quick, and urgent. Basil paused to steady his heart before he crossed the room and opened the door. Was that brief pause all it took? No one stood on the doorstep. No shadowy figure retreated from the foggy streets. If an enchantment had been used to hide the visitor's steps, it was a good one. Basil sensed nothing. As far as he could tell, he was alone, save for an envelope sealed with thick violet wax. A chill gripped Basil then, deeper than the Docktown mist. He snatched up the letter and pulled it back inside. There was no settling his heart now. He knew before he ripped open the envelope that what he'd find within: 3 small amethysts, polished and perfect. It can't be. It wasn't until after he held the gems in his hand that he noticed the stain on the envelope's corner. Who sent the mysterious letter, and what more does it contain? How have 3 small amethysts shaken our hero, and where is Ilvan? We'll have the latest chapter of the Violet Haze next week from the Nightly Scroll. Below in Balara's handwriting. We've gotten so many clues. You can tell who it's from, right? In Nev's handwriting. You're assuming writers play fair. Detective turned shadow. An old unsigned letter haphazardly filed with handwriting samples annotated by Nev. Nev Gallus. Slight slant in the penmanship, narrow loops. I know you know who I am. I know you're a few people and another I didn't know about. Check. I suspect you know who I work with. Smooth connectors, good ink, but can't fully hide the flourish. Expensive schooling. A time and place will follow. You'll know them when you see them. If you're interested, we could use someone like you. Is this where I bring the light? Interesting. Docktown Intel, the place itself. People say the same things about this place. It's on the docks, no kidding, and full of dark alleys. A place to disappear. Tourists say it's full of magic and we've got our own share, but compared to most of the city, there's fewer majors here. You want more? Best places to eavesdrop, where to find secrets, gossip. You want something found? That's why you came to me. How about the best view? There's a morning mist, and when the daylight hits, if you know the right angle, it glows like silver. I can tell you the cat with the frog croak mew like scraps, and where to buy the best bread. You want to laugh? I've got a hit. I've got leads on a good show. A sad song? Well, it's your heart to break. Nev. Alright. Lords of Fortune. Trap plans. Idea. Spinning blades at head height 1 by mirror. Good. Blades good. Bad. Maybe won't kill blighted gods. Bad. Might kill us by accident. No. Idea. Pressure plate near exit of mirror room. Poison dart. Flames. Good. Reliable. Bad. Some of the stuff we're fighting floats too. Bad. Pressure plates get sticky and require maintenance. No. Idea. 1. Head height for humans? Question mark. 2. Ask Nev if floating stuff would still trigger pressure plate from magic pushing down. Nice. No. Idea. Door with wire attached to bucket on hook at ceiling. Bucket filled with those mushrooms Asan likes. They fall on target. Asan raises alarm and attacks / eats. Good. Teamwork. Bad. Davern might be mad. Bad. Mushrooms stinky. 3. Why do they smell like worms? Antam versus Kunari, with notes from Shathan by Tosh, age 14. Most people think the Antam are like other Kunari, but that's not true now that they've broken away from the Kun. They are very different. You could strengthen your thesis by adding in their attitudes toward the Kun and towards foreigners. Normal Kunari think the Kun is like a map or guide. The Antam think of it as orders. Could use more details. Orders must be followed or broken, while a map is a constant source of guidance. Normal Kunari want to convert boss. Antam want to kill them. I will add reading to your list regarding our people's war with Demeter. In conclusion, normal Kunari just want to live their lives. Antam want to kill everyone. We will work on adding specific examples next time. Tosh talks dragon. Vinsummer. Appearance. Dark back and light underbelly. She's hard to see when underwater, like those whales. Diet. Squid or those big worms that burrow near the shore. Uses her lightning to stun prey. Jaws are more like a beak, good to grip squishy stuff or crack shells. I think the lightning also helps her see down in the deep water. She does little crackles before she strikes. Behavior. She's hunting more than she needs. She is also not attacking Antam unless they get close to her lair. Then she kills them fast. I think she has dragonlings. Must be trying to keep them fed and not look for fights. Only reason a dragon stays that quiet is to protect her kids. Warlords of the Antam. It is easy to think that the Antam broke from the Kunari as one, but the reality is that of a vast shattering into countless shards, each broken in its own way, reflecting the warlord who now leads each kith. Some, like the Butcher and Treviso, use their new freedom to indulge in cultures long forbidden to them. Others, like Atashok, Dragon King, or Ishkatari, Master Killer, and Ravane, reject foreign cultures, and either lean on the trappings of the Antam or invent a heritage to inspire the loyalty of their soldiers. What seems consistent among the Antam warlords is cruelty, from Bakunasar, Flaming Wind, whose ships terrorize the northern coast, to Kashtar, Jewel Taker, whose kith have become a bandit army in the mountains outside Marathias. I believe the reason to be twofold. First, these Kithshoks feared that their army might turn upon them as they turned upon the Arishok, so they drive their soldiers through fear, and second, there are very few kind and thoughtful Antam. This is an observation, not an insult. The Kun has two words for healer. One is Rathari, a healer priest, whose name literally means one who helps people. The other is Meridim, an Antam battlefield healer, whose name comes from the Mar Iwat Adim, or do not let them fall. Those under the Kun have jobs selected for them by their teachers, so any young Kunari too thoughtful or too sensitive for the harsh life of the Antam would have been made Rathari instead of Meridim. The Kunari, in their wisdom, decided that all children who were naturally prepared to follow orders and hurt others should be placed in the Antam, and this is the result. There are few Antam, not Kishaks, but individual soldiers who did not break from the Kun. Their help is the only reason the betrayed Arishok survived. They and the former Arishok have renounced their Antam status and now serve under the defense branch of the Ben Hassarath. As the Kunari, their body in rebellion try to survive with mind and soul alone, except from the Marlokun, the loss of reason by Seer Rowan of Darsmud. The Antam invasion. When the Antam invaded the south, the people there were completely unprepared. Antiva and the northern ravine were overrun quickly, with the invaders pushing down through the green dales to the Minotaur River, leaving only the southernmost of the free marchers spared. From there, the Antam pushed west, overpowering Tevinter magic with Gatlock cannons and brute strength until the defenders finally held at Byzantium. Navarra was spared, likely due to the Antam fears of necromancy and unwillingness to attack until Tevinter was conquered. But almost half of northern Thetis fell to the Antam rule in just a few years. To those asking why the Antam waited centuries to attack in force if they were this powerful, I would remind them that the Kun teaches that outsiders are to be converted and educated. Under Kunari control, the Antam have been fighting only to Minter, and even then they followed rules governing how and when to attack. Gatlock cannons were not to be used on civilian targets, for example. When the Antam broke from the Kun, they threw off the restraints that had held them back. It is also important to note that the Antam fought alone. With little in the way of supply lines or experts in food production, the craftspeople and strategic experts who would normally support them had not broken from the Kun, and when the Antam did, the invaders needed to attack to keep eating. When they encountered resistance that would have forced a siege, the Antam invasion stalled. The Kishaks, who wished only to conquer, now had to learn to rule the lands they would claim, except from the Marlokun, the loss of reason by Seer Rowan of Darsman. Dragon's Breath and the Antam Schism. The official story of the Kunari attack upon the south holds that the Dragon's Breath plan to attack the south was a rogue action against official Kunari orders. This is true, but is not the whole truth. The Salasari triumvirate of the Kun represents the Kunari people. The Arishok commands the Antam, the military branch that represents the body. The Arakun leads the scholars and priests, representing the soul, and the Aragina guides the craftspeople, representing the mind. After the breach wreaked chaos across the south, and the triumvirate suggested caution and sent a Kunari representative to observe and report on the Inquisition, but some in the Antam and the Ben Hassarath believed their leaders lacked the will to end the threat. Dragon's Breath was indeed unsanctioned, but it was not unpopular. Kunari, who had fought the blood mages of Tevinter, had learned to fear all magic. They wanted a fast solution. When Dragon's Breath failed, the surviving Ben Hassarath spied surrendered. In contrast, the Antam insisted that Dragon's Breath had failed because it did not go far enough. The boss, they declared, did not merit education under the Kun. They must be conquered or destroyed. When their Arishok, who had fought Darkspawn and Ferelden during the Fifth Blight, argued against this demand, his own Kishaks declared him corrupt. They ambushed the Arishok at the War Council, leaving him badly injured. Sten became an Arishok! Amazing. And then the bloodthirsty Antam went to war, a body now bereft of mind and soul. Excerpt from Malakun, The Loss of Reason by Sierra Rowan and Darsman. Alright. Miscellaneous and memento. Oh my gosh, I have so many mementos. Oh, but those are quick. Miscellaneous. Let's go ahead and pause here real quick. Unpause. Charter in Marnus Pel. A paper from the Tevinter city of Marnus Pel with one item circled. Scandal struck the household of Magister Pominus, an eldest son and heir Sorasin has been found dead in what appears to have been a venatory ritual gone awry. Rumors in the household speak of escaped slaves and stolen artifacts, and some are suggesting that the death was due to venatory infighting. A visibly angry Magister Pominus declared his son innocent of any wrongdoing and blamed elven thieves for the incident. A note written in the margins. Lace, Vea and I were in the neighborhood. The artifact is safe. Doesn't seem related to your work. Assume every noble Tevinter family not with Shadow Dragons has venatory pulling strings. Fair. Randy Dowager Quarterly Volume 3. Where's Volume 1 and Volume 2? Well, the Randy Dowager Quarterly Volume 3. A sadly pristine and unread quarterly missive of suspect virtue. The Randy Dowager welcomes both season and heat by reprinting their nightly needs. Being a wartime tale of lines crossed, blows and traded, and love's promise to bridge any separation with cunning intent. A timely tale of tensions relieved by soldiers coming together. The Randy Dowager, exhibitions for the noble of thought, but spry of step. The lady herself says, historically questionable, but one does not prefer the relief of a happy ending. For those who shy from politics but little else, the 3 scarves fluttered in shock out of 5. R.D. Letter to Charter. Charter. I'm assuming you got my last message about Varric. We're adjusting with Rook stepping up. We're still searching for answers on the elven gods we released. Solus remains contained and less of an immediate problem. How's the situation in the south? Has there been any activity related to the elven gods? What about the Antom? They seem entrenched in Tiva, though any increase in the number of scouts might signal them getting ready to move. I'm still receiving letters regularly from my ma, so I gather Ferelden is far enough away that trouble hasn't reached it yet. What about Orlais or the Free Marches? Please respond as soon as you can. The usual channels remain open. Harding. Charter in Solus. A paper from the Tevinter city of Solus with one item circled. The Silent Festival will take place this year. After cancellations the last few years from concerns about Antom pushing east from the Perivantium, local organizers have confirmed that Navaran mages will be coming to help celebrate the lives of those recently lost with visions of the Fade. The festival will include feasting, dancing, and seances. As the veil is expected to be quite thin from the spiritual energies, minors with magical talent should not be left unattended. A note written in the margins. Lace, we investigated thoroughly. It really does appear to be a coincidence that the city shares a name with our mutual acquaintance. Seems like it should have some connection, but no. Had to be sure though. Charter. Charter in Virantium. A paper from the Tevinter city of Virantium with one item circled. Fighting between Tevinter and Antom forces have calmed down, with Tevinter reclaiming a lost town after the Antom cannons mysteriously failed. The town is now safe and former prisoners are being treated for their injuries. Sadly, several war mages were killed retaking the city, reportedly victims of Antom assassins. A note written in the margins. Lace, Marius, Tessa, and I paid a visit. Venatori and Antom might be serving the same gods, but they're not knowingly working together and are easy enough to turn on one another. Charter. The Randy Dowager Quarterly Volume 4. A well-thumbed quarterly missive of suspect virtue. The randy dowager welcomes the shortened days with longing for the collected two-telling tales, being a story of rocking between hard places, first seeking escape but ultimately finding release. Then, probably a third bear man shows up. The Randy Dowager, exhibitions for the noble of thought but spry of step. The lady herself says, strange credulity and modesty in equal measure, but where better to suspend disbelief than upon rising passions? Four scarves fluttered in shock out of 5. R.D. Harding's notes, lyrium dagger. They had no idea it was a dagger when they found it in the primeval dyke. It looked like an idol with figures carved from the red lyrium. Didn't want to stare at it too long, Varric once said. Felt like it was staring back. His brother, Bartrand, kept the idol for himself and probably stared at it much too long. When he felt his sanity slipping, Bartrand sold the idol to Knight Commander Meredith of Kirkwall, who forged the idol into a blade. It didn't end well for her. The idol remains lodged in Meredith's petrified remains, but it was removed some years ago, presumably by Solus, and restored to its original form. That's when we learned about the idol's connection to the elven gods. Solus used the lyrium dagger to create the veil, and he's going to use it to bring the veil down. Letter from Solus to Elgernon. To Elgernon, Sun Tamer, General of the Enlightened Army, first among the Evanurus, ruler of Arlathan, who woke at the dawn of the elves. From Solus, Spirit Speaker, second to Mythal, Fenharal, the Dreadwolf, who is no younger. I ask you again to reconsider. To claim there is no difference between ruling as a king and ruling as God begs the question of why you feel it necessary to claim such a title for yourself. Most of the people accept your rule. You have shackled their bodies. Must you shackle their minds in turn? There is much we disagree upon, but you must see that hobbling our people with such claims will limit their spirits and tarnish the gleam of your leadership. Your power is unquestioned. May your wisdom match it. Letter from Solus to Gillenane. I've seen your creatures. Some are beautiful, some are horrific, but all are brilliant. I can understand how such incredible achievements could make one feel like a god. Perhaps that explains the terror you have caused, and the transformations wrought upon those unable to defend themselves. But you must know that you are not a god. You are a mage, and a title from the Evanurus cannot alter that. If anything, joining their ranks will bind you to their political will. You can make creatures to protect our people from the Evanurus. Why debase yourself and threaten our people by joining them? Of course, I know why. I hope you gain peace with Andrul. You would not be the first to sacrifice your morals for love. Notes from the Crossroads Islands. Handwritten notes annotate a page torn from a grimoire. His ritual may not have broken the world, but it has shifted another. Once the crossroads blossomed for the people. Now islands rise in the great divides, and if this place blooms, it blooms unseen. One should appreciate it still, for truth has its own beauty. The changed crossroads is a sign of life both here and elsewhere. Its islands reflect the world beyond, not just as we see it, but as the crossroads has shown it. An alluvion has two faces, after all. I wonder what certain acquaintances of mine will make of this, of the people's refuge taking on new form. Great plans will change, no doubt, but they should welcome it. Change, after all, sets us free. Unmapping the unmappable. This appears to be a piece of litter. Closer inspection reveals that it is an obsessively drawn map folded like a Ravani paper toy. Unfolding it creates a three-dimensional model of something. The scrawled note is visible. I refuse to be beaten. These are reflections of true places. They have logical form. Therefore, these streets and their origin points can be mapped as anywhere else. I have charted the shifting, intertwining dreams of a primordial sloth demon and its victims. I will not be bested by architecture. My mentor keeps whining. Some things are unknowable, Virion. You're curting madness, Virion. Well, I say to him, would a mad woman concoct an entirely new schema of wisp mapping incantations just for this? The rest is unreadable. Letter to Charter. Charter. Yes, the trail went cold, but we haven't entirely lost it. Solus left us a little farewell note, so I'm not giving up just yet. Maybe it's gullible of me, but I know the Inquisitor feels the same. Solus isn't too far gone to bring back. If he weren't, he would have just killed us when he had the chance. He didn't have to save her life when he took back the anchor. He didn't have to warn me and Harding to give up. I don't think he wants to do this, so I'm taking the chance. Yes, yes, I know, don't put anything in writing. I don't want it coming back to haunt me. Varric. Elgernon's reply. To Solus, Spirit Speaker. Second to Mythal, Dreadwolf. Our Lord Elgernon has received your words and will give them the consideration they deserved. Rest well, knowing our Lord Elgernon is devoted to his people and their well-being, and wishes for them to have lives of peace and abundance. Regards, Desmil Bloodhound to Elgernon, keeper of his rights, on behalf of Elgernon, Sun Tamer, Crown of Arlathan, first of the firstborn, Lord of the day and of the night, who woke at the dawn of the Elven. A monument to humility. This monument has been methodically destroyed. One of the shards shows a victorious elven general. Written firmly across the smiling stone face are Veilfire runes. Here is the folly of Miranados, dreamer and defender of Arlathan. He broke the ragged blades of the hungering brethren. He laid the head of the moon-bred serpent at the Vunan gates. In his arrogance, he thought to claim these crossroads for the glory of Arlathan alone. Upon these peaks he set these monuments. But he returned to find Arlathan lost and his people scattered, and those who sheltered the stranger and fed the hungry were greater heroes than he. Here is the folly, and here also the lesson. Pride bears us to the heights, and pride casts us from them. Elegy to a Dead Spirit. Sketched on living bark, these Veilfire runes impart the sensations of both ancient dignity and a piercing grief. That which is ephemeral changes the ephemeral in others. The light of being never goes unseen. Far sown memories remain, though you are no memory. What endures now has no name, save yours. Notes on a caretaker. This note has a smear of paint on one corner. Have they always been here? There are beings in the crossroads unknown even to the wise, though the most ancient ones make any domain their own. Certainly, this caretaker belongs here now. I wonder what we look like to them. Need is a scaffold, and the needs of the living ever rise and fall upon it. Hunger, thirst, sleep, imagine the constant cacophony to one sensitive to such things. Or am I too simple? Wants are fleeting, needs have deeper roots. Perhaps that's why I find this particular spirit's presence both comforting and disconcerting. The prospect that our heart's desire and our truest need could differ or are even at odds is hard to contemplate. On Life in the Lighthouse. This ancient logbook is filled with meticulous Veilfire runes, though it is encoded. Flickering through it offers vignettes borrowed memory. Fearful refugees are ushered to the lighthouse through alluvions, emerging from the infirmary and libraries as soldiers, spies, and scholars. Gardeners plant long-extinct herbs that grow, are harvested and withered in the blink of an eye. The sharp smell of distilling medicine wafts from a window, and poison for the enemy drips into a vial. The arguments of a war council go on late into the night. Forbidden songs are sung freely, with filthy lyrics substituted for the eminers' names. Finally, a heated conversation silhouetted against glass with quick shadows darting behind it. The argument ends with a wordless but unmistakable impression. You summoned them. You feed them. And I already did this one. So, on to mementos. Contract. The next march. Crow diplomacy signed in blood from period after influence was claimed, but before responsibility was accepted. If nations march on the elves, Antiva will not be silent, never again. Contract. The next blight. Crow diplomacy dating from the fourth blight. As guild influence grew, Grey Wardens were the first to recognize true Antivan leadership. Therefore, treaties bore seals of queens, emperors, and crows. Contract. The next false avatar. Crow diplomacy at its most hypothetical, possibly signed in jest with one of the most rambunctious divines, a price on the head of a false prophet should one arise. The dragon's decoy, that's so fun. The dragon's decoy, an overly complicated container that radiates magic, a simple attempt to scry within reveals extensive but time-consuming, contradictory rebellion plans that ends up in Venatori hands surprisingly and usually often. The Shadow's Chance. Venatori love a spellbook, so we let them find one. It is full of what we believe is right and good. It has converted no one, but we have hope. A Fool in His Skull. The remains of Caon Aventus Dumas. Born the inevitable Venator. An ocularum crystal was embedded in one eye at the start of his rule, a dagger in the other shortly thereafter. The Taken Attuned. A resonant piece of unknown metal, tempered in the breath of an archdemon. Said to reveal where whispers cross, but its Venatori makers are no longer available to elaborate. Pall of the Unknown Magister. A sealed pall crafted to contain a specific powerful Venatori Magister. The Shadow Dragons haven't revealed or perhaps decided on the Magister, and so all are afraid instead of one. The Nature of Immortality, of Nature of, a verse of an old Arlathan and textile. We saw no end to fear for us, and songs would sing instead of birth, an unknown start more strange than death, because... Hazards, persistent. A map of persistent veil breaks and physicality failures in central Arlathan Forest. To the uninitiated, the strangest thing about veil jumper maps is how few of them say just run. Hazards, tomorrow. A predictive map, which is perhaps counter to the concept of physical mapping, but central to veil jumper survival. Know where you don't know the danger is. The Hand Right. Young, as elven artifacts go. The Right. The last to reach back, not grasping, but bidding farewell. Don't mourn what we were, because while we endure, it has not died. I guess I'll start here. Vint 6, the Common Red. A celebration of life, thick and sweet, served by the sip. Tradition says the more who partake, the greater the fortune, for no one is free until everyone is free. Kuhn on the Rocks. A recent drowned district staple. Rum is matched with salt water and presumably seasoned parboiled fruit, floated from a dreadnought hold while on Tom are distracted by their own windy butcher. Grapalinghick, a white liqueur with hints of elderflower and dark intent, served with 3 coffee beans and a smile not shared by the eyes. Colorless, guileless, harmless? Now we have you. Amazakafe, the coffee killer. The Pomach brandy is swirled in a still warm cup and sipped on the move, following the Antivan custom of Dematas in the dining room, murder in the den. Dew of the Dales, like it says on the label, spirits for the spirited. An elven elation of the brewing arts, sold only in Antiva, a guarantee that changes only slightly in other markets. The Ravens of Antiva. The first debate after Antiva partnered with assassins was quite literally symbolic. The question was crow or raven. Early sculptors worked with both, and many remained despite the obvious victor. The Writ of Free Commerce, a reproduction of the decree exempting Antivan trade from royal taxation. Municipal fees remain, but are rarely mentioned when merchants try to get similar writs passed in their home nations. Sign of Shaper's Respite. A plaque offering a dwarven translation of directions and sites in Treviso, proving a common history of trade that once again predates official records of discovering places where people already live. Okay, yeah, this is different, so let's start here. Antivan Sprig, a child's practice blade with faded paint the color of old blood, singular but also somehow common, treasured by many in Antivan youth but also lost when coming of age. Hala's Resolve. These clear, resounding instruments are made from the seasonal shed of a single lineage of Hala, a trade of mutual respect that began when Antiva stood strong with the Dales. Call of the Carnival. Simple skin tensioned over hardwood, strapped for travel. In Antiva, the drummer is at the fore, calling crowds to join. What follows is cacophonous, and the beat is ever strong. Pocket Frog. The master cut away all that was not glory, and their perfection was witnessed by a singular vault. June said sweep in their wake and make each imperfection a shared simple joy. The Mother of Hala, a pantomime theater mask of Gillanane. In narrative, she is the price and acceptance of purpose, and the becoming that allows no return. Betrayal and devotion became equals to her. Beyond the Veil, a map in a hand unused to paper. Their terror was trembling and palpable. Land as empty as this new void in us. that seizes the spirit and makes us suddenly meet. Promise of glory, a relic that claims prehistory, when gods wrote decrees of coming ascension. There are fewer hands, the first warnings of betrayal, and the change that would eventually claim all. With first hands, the earliest style of elven carving, the simple made permanent, a balm to soothe children and other new mortals, when all else in existence has been revealed as temporary. The Long Night, a pantomime theater mask of Falandine. In narrative, he's the unfamiliar that precedes change, the willing sleep that calms or changes desire. Endings were different in the time of immortals. Pillars of Kal Sharok, voice. An ancient manuscript. We are a shout from the deep places, dissonance and harmony, a chorus, sung by the many in one voice. Pillars of Kal Sharok, stone. An ancient manuscript. We are the foundations of the great Thy. Kal Sharok stands until the last of us falls. Seal of House Laskar, a seal bearing the sigil of the noble House Laskar of Kal Sharok. While the house was dissolved, many of Kal Sharok's inhabitants can claim a connection to the bloodline. Well-loved book. A battered copy of the illustrated novel Inquisition Exposed, rated 5 scars flustered in shock out of 5 by the notorious Randy Dowager Quarterly. Ornate bottle. A lotion popular among the Minrathous elite, said to create a tingling sensation felt from the Imperial Highway up to the Archon's Palace. Many-limbed statue. Some say the statue depicts Razakale, others a demon. Still others see no connection to known religions or the Fade, all agree it gives them a sense of unease. Ancient illustration. These stylized symbols represent the forking of thought, consciousness, will, finality, and time, all favorite subjects of Navarre's greatest necromancer philosophers. Written over artwork. What began as an anatomical study has degenerated into a series of furious notes from several scholars on whether a skeleton can ever be said to be nude. Public warning. A wanted poster of the notorious half-made bandit, a thief who escaped a Mornwatch anatomy class post-mortem. He remains a persistent scourge in Navarre City. Impossible map. During the Storm Age, romantic Navarran artists mixed a drop of their own blood into their inks. The Watchers discouraged the practice as it kept leading to possessed artwork. Strange painting. A painting recovered from the collapsed tomb of an ancient king. The stories surrounding the burial site about spectral figures and stolen crown are typical necropolis rumors. Pungent perfume. The closer one is to the grand necropolis, the thicker the perfume grows. Dense tome. Duties of the prelate of the grand necropolis. The previous prelate, Vestalis Pentagast, passed away in 949. Dragon. Oh no. The ceremony was attended by his niece, a woman of some renown. That's sad. Voluminous notes. The long-sought notes of one of Navarre's most famous spirit summoners. Some whisper that Eglantine Feldever still wanders the Fade, though she died 60 years ago. Gilded cage. The cage is empty, yet on certain nights, bird song pours out through the bars. What's this? Council of Spirits. This book appears to tell the story of a debate held centuries ago between a Tevinter Magister and a spirit speaking through a Ravani seer. Petrified Dragon's Egg. The shape and the markings clearly identify this as a dragon's egg, but the object has been petrified not by age but by magic. Eternal Wail. A disturbing carving of a screaming figure. If held against the wind, it emits a howl that sends a shiver through the listener's spine. Free March's Guardian. Said to warn respectful owners against threats, it sometimes faces different directions without being moved. Oh no. Templar's Ritual Kit. A Templar's Ritual Kit prepared with dangerously blighted red lyrium. The box itself is weathered, but the tools within remain in pristine condition. Woo! Mark all is red. Alright, and that is the end of Codex Readings number 2. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, enjoy the rest of your insert time here, and goodbye.